My sister borrowed my wedding dress for photos, and I found out she'd been wearing it to seduce my husband. Cassidy called me 3 weeks after my honeymoon, voice dripping with fake sweetness. Hey Thea, could I borrow your wedding dress? I'm doing this vintage bridal photo shoot for my portfolio. The client specifically requested something with intricate beadwork. I hesitated. That dress cost $3,200 and took 8 months of alterations to fit perfectly. But Cassidy was struggling to launch her photography business after dropping out of art school, and family helps family. Just be incredibly careful with it, I said. The beading is hand-sewn Swarovski crystals. Of course. I'll treat it like spun gold. She picked it up Tuesday while Rowan was at work. I wrapped it in acid-free tissue paper and handed over my most treasured possession to my little sister. The same sister who'd borrowed my cashmere sweater senior year and returned it with wine stains and burn holes. For 2 weeks, life seemed normal. Rowan came home from his marketing job. We'd cook dinner, watch Netflix. He seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly, but I figured it was work stress. Then my neighbor Delilah knocked on my door holding her phone. Honey, I debated showing you this, she said grimly. I was walking Bruno past Cafe Luna yesterday and saw something disturbing. The photo made my world tilt sideways. There was my sister, in my wedding dress, pressed against my husband outside the cafe. His hands were tangled in the lace I'd spent hours admiring in bridal magazines. She gazed up at him with the same expression she'd worn when she stole my high school boyfriend. When was this taken? I whispered. Yesterday around 2:15 p.m., Rowan had told me he was in client meetings all afternoon. That night, I pretended everything was normal, made his favorite salmon dinner, asked about his day. He described fictional meetings in vivid detail, lying smoothly. After he fell asleep, I checked his phone. The messages made me sick. Cassidy, wearing your wife's dress makes this even hotter. Rowan, you look better in it than she ever did. Cassidy, think she suspects anything? Rowan, she's too trusting. Always has been. It's pathetic. 23 messages over 2 weeks. Detailed meeting plans, explicit photos, cruel commentary about my naivety. They'd turned my wedding dress into a prop for their affair. The next morning, I drove to Cassidy's apartment using my spare key. My wedding dress hung in her closet, reeking of her perfume and his cologne. Behind her jewelry box, I found a hidden camera still recording. I scrolled through the memory card with trembling fingers. They'd documented everything. Multiple encounters. In my dress. But the videos dated back 6 months. Before my wedding. Before my engagement. In one video from 3 days before my bachelorette party, they were discussing their strategy. After the honeymoon, we'll be more careful, Rowan said. But once I get half her inheritance in the divorce, we can disappear together. My inheritance. The $847,000 trust fund I'd mentioned during our engagement. Cassidy giggled. She actually thinks you love her. It's almost tragic. Her stupidity is profitable, he replied. The sister is much better in bed anyway. They'd high-fived over my gullibility. I sat on her floor, watching my husband and sister destroy my life while wearing my wedding dress. Something inside me snapped. I copied everything to multiple devices and called my divorce attorney friend Simone. I need to see you immediately, I said. And bring that private investigator's contact. After reviewing the evidence, Simone whistled. This is ironclad proof of adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud. Your prenup's infidelity clause forfeits all his marital assets. I spent the day planning their destruction. That evening, I cooked an elaborate dinner. Prime rib, truffle potatoes, expensive wine we'd been saving. What's the occasion? Rowan asked suspiciously. I've been thinking about trust, I said. How crucial honesty is in marriage. He shifted uncomfortably. Of course. Honesty is everything. I'm glad you feel that way, I smiled. Because I know about Cassidy. His wine glass shattered on our marble floor, red liquid spreading like blood. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. I played the video. His voice filled our dining room. Her stupidity is profitable. Rowan looked like he was about to vomit all over our expensive dinner. How long have you known? He whispered. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to build a bulletproof legal case. Long enough to ensure you both pay for what you've done. He tried reaching for me, but I stood up smoothly. Don't touch me with the same hands that violated my sister while she wore my wedding dress. Thea, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And worse. You married me for my money. You've been planning to divorce me and steal half my inheritance. You involved my sister to make it more devastating. His shoulders sagged in defeat. What do you want? Pack your things and leave tonight. Divorce papers will be served tomorrow, along with fraud charges. You can't prove fraud. I played another video showing them creating fake receipts, doctoring bank statements to make my inheritance appear as marital property. Actually, I can prove everything. He left that night with 2 suitcases. Everything else belonged to me according to our prenup. The next morning, I drove to Cassidy's with Mom and our cousin Valencia as witnesses. When she opened the door in a silk robe at 11 a.m., her face cycled through emotions. Surprise, confusion, then terror. We need to talk, I said, pushing past her. My wedding dress was draped over her couch like a discarded towel, wrinkled and stained. I found some interesting videos. I began calmly. Cassidy's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I can explain everything. You can't. There's no explanation for months of planning this betrayal. Mom stepped forward, her face harder than I'd ever seen it. Pack your things. You're banned from this family. Mom, please. I said pack. While Cassidy threw clothes into luggage, crying, I retrieved my dress. Lawsuit papers will be served Tuesday, I informed her. Alienation of affection? Conspiracy to commit fraud. Emotional distress. My attorney estimates $300,000 in damages. I don't have that money. Should have thought of that before destroying my marriage for entertainment. The divorce concluded 4 months later. Rowan got nothing due to the infidelity clause. Criminal fraud charges resulted in 18 months probation, $75,000 restitution, and a destroyed career. Cassidy's lawsuit took 8 months. Despite her expensive attorney arguing she wasn't responsible for Rowan's choices, the video evidence proved she was an active participant. We settled for $220,000 plus a 5-year restraining order, but the real devastation came from the social fallout. I'd strategically shared edited versions of their betrayal with key people in our social circle. Within weeks, everyone knew what they'd done. Rowan's colleagues at Hartwell & Associates were shown evidence of his fraud planning. He was terminated immediately, and word spread throughout the marketing industry. No respectable firm would hire him. Cassidy's Art World connections received anonymous packages containing screenshots of her participating in inheritance fraud. Gallery owners who'd been considering her work suddenly stopped returning calls. Her photography clients discovered her history of betraying family members and canceled contracts. I attended every court hearing, watching them squirm as their lawyers tried defending the indefensible. Rowan's attorney attempted arguing temporary insanity, while Cassidy's claimed she was manipulated. The judges weren't buying it. The most satisfying moment came during Rowan's sentencing hearing. The prosecutor read aloud from their videos. "Her stupidity is profitable." The courtroom gasped. The judge increased his restitution by $25,000. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding my life methodically. I kept my job at the design firm but started freelancing on weekends, using my divorce settlement to invest in a small studio space downtown. Without Rowan's expensive tastes draining our accounts, I had more money than ever before. I also started therapy with Dr. Morrison, a specialist in betrayal trauma. She helped me understand that Cassidy's behavior wasn't sudden. There'd been red flags throughout our childhood that I'd ignored. Narcissists often target family members because of existing trust, Dr. Morrison explained. Your sister saw your happiness and wanted to destroy it simply because she could. Through therapy, I realized Cassidy had always competed with me. When I got into honor society, she suddenly developed an interest in academics. When I started dating seriously, she'd flirt with my boyfriends. When I announced my engagement, she immediately started dating older, wealthy men. The inheritance revelation made perfect sense in retrospect. Cassidy had always been obsessed with money, but terrible at managing it. She'd maxed out multiple credit cards in college, borrowed thousands from dad that she never repaid, and constantly complained about her financial struggles. Mom was devastated by the betrayal, but not entirely surprised. During one of our weekly dinners, she admitted she'd suspected something was wrong with Cassidy for years. "She never showed genuine remorse for anything," Mom said, picking at her salad. "When she broke your grandmother's vase at Christmas, she blamed the cat. When she crashed your car in high school, she claimed someone hit her in the parking lot. She always had excuses." Dad struggled more with the situation. Cassidy had always been his favorite, his little artist who could do no wrong. Accepting that she'd orchestrated such an elaborate betrayal required him to reevaluate 28 years of parenting decisions. "I enabled her," he admitted during one painful conversation. "Every time she got in trouble, I bailed her out. I never made her face real consequences." My extended family's reactions were mixed. Some relatives thought I was being too harsh, suggesting families should forgive family regardless of circumstances. Others were horrified by what Cassidy had done and fully supported cutting her off. Aunt Priscilla, Mom's sister, was particularly vocal in her support. "That girl has been trouble since she was small," she declared at Easter dinner. "Remember when she convinced little Timothy to steal money from the church collection? Or when she spread those rumors about cousin Melissa sleeping around? This is just her finally showing her true colors." Uncle Gabriel disagreed. "She's still family. People make mistakes. Maybe she was just jealous and acted impulsively." I shut that down immediately. Months of planning isn't impulsive. Recording themselves wasn't impulsive. Stealing my inheritance wasn't impulsive. She's not a confused child. She's a 30-year-old woman who chose to destroy my life for money. The family dinners became tense affairs. Some relatives tiptoed around mentioning Cassidy, while others pretended nothing had happened. I appreciated the ones who acknowledged the situation honestly. Cousin Valencia became my strongest ally. She'd never liked Cassidy, calling her manipulative and attention-seeking since we were teenagers. "I tried warning you about her when you first brought Rowan to family gatherings," Valencia told me. "She was watching him too closely, asking too many personal questions about his job and finances, but I didn't want to seem paranoid." The evidence collection process was exhausting but thorough. My private investigator, Marcus Chen, uncovered additional proof of their scheme. He found hotel receipts, restaurant charges, and even a joint bank account they'd opened to manage their relationship expenses. Most damning was a credit card application Cassidy had submitted using my personal information to fund their affair. She'd been planning to default on it and let the debt fall on me. That discovery added identity theft charges to her growing legal troubles. Marcus also investigated Rowan's financial history and found he'd attempted similar schemes with previous girlfriends. One ex-girlfriend, Lindsay, agreed to testify about his pattern of targeting women with family money. "He researched my family's business before our third date," Lindsay told the court. "He knew exactly how much my trust fund was worth and started planning our future immediately. When I broke up with him, he tried claiming I'd promised him money for his startup idea." The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through the timeline of discovery and the emotional impact of their betrayal. My voice stayed steady as I described finding my wedding dress defiled in Cassidy's apartment, but I let tears fall when explaining how they'd mocked my trust. Rowan's testimony was pathetic. He claimed he genuinely loved me initially, but fell for Cassidy's manipulation. His lawyer presented him as a victim of her seduction, ignoring the evidence that he'd initiated contact and planned the inheritance fraud. Cassidy's testimony was even worse. She cried dramatically, claiming she'd been trying to protect me from Rowan's true nature by exposing him. When confronted with video evidence of her participating in fraud planning, she claimed she was playing along to gather evidence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found both defendants guilty on all counts and awarded me $340,000 in damages, more than my attorney had requested. But the money couldn't repair the psychological damage. I struggled with trust issues that affected every relationship. When grocery store clerks were overly friendly, I wondered what they wanted. When coworkers complimented my work, I analyzed their motives. Dr. Morrison helped me work through the paranoia systematically. We practiced distinguishing between reasonable caution and unhealthy suspicion. She taught me to identify genuine kindness versus manipulation tactics. Your hypervigilance is a normal trauma response, she explained, but staying in constant defense mode will prevent you from forming healthy connections. 6 months after the trial ended, I was sitting in Café Luna, the same place where their betrayal was photographed, when someone approached my table. "Excuse me," a man said politely. "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I witnessed what happened here months ago, with your ex-husband and the woman in the wedding dress." I looked up to see a tall man with kind brown eyes and a nervous smile. I remembered him from that day. He'd been working on a laptop at the corner table. I wanted to say something then, but didn't know how. "I'm Xavier Montenegro, Thea Richardson," I replied, closing my book. "Would you maybe like to get coffee sometime? Actual coffee, not surveillance coffee." I laughed for the first time in months. I'd like that. Our first date was at a small bistro across town. Xavier was the environmental engineer, recently divorced himself after discovering his ex-wife's gambling addiction had destroyed their finances. He understood betrayal trauma without trying to fix me. I spent 2 years in therapy learning to trust my instincts again, he shared over dinner. Some days are harder than others, but it gets easier. We took things incredibly slowly. Xavier never pushed for information about my past or rushed physical intimacy. He seemed content to build friendship first, which I desperately needed. On our 4th date, I told him about Cassidy and Rowan. He listened without judgment, asking clarifying questions, but never offering unsolicited advice. "That's incredibly painful," he said simply. "I'm sorry you went through that." His reaction was perfect, acknowledging my pain without trying to minimize it or fix it. We dated for 8 months before I introduced him to my family. Mom adored him immediately, impressed by his genuine interest in her garden and his patient answers to Dad's engineering questions. "He looks at you the way your father looked at me when we were young," Mom whispered, while Xavier helped Dad examine a broken irrigation timer. At our 1-year anniversary dinner, Xavier surprised me with a small velvet box. My heart stopped. I wasn't ready for an engagement ring, but inside was a key. "It's to my apartment," he said. "No pressure to move in, but I wanted you to know you're always welcome, whenever you're ready." I cried, overwhelmed by his patience and understanding. We moved in together 6 months later. Xavier never suggested I get rid of my separate savings account or pressured me to merge our finances completely. He understood my need for financial independence after what I'd experienced. Meanwhile, updates on Cassidy and Rowan's situations occasionally reached me through family or social media. Neither was doing well. Rowan had moved back with his parents after losing 3 jobs in succession. His criminal record made employment difficult, and the restitution payments consumed most of his income. He'd developed a drinking problem and gained significant weight, according to mutual acquaintances. Cassidy's situation was arguably worse. The alienation of affection lawsuit had destroyed her credit, and the restraining order prevented her from contacting potential family reconciliation supporters. She'd moved to another state, but struggled to rebuild her photography business with her reputation preceding her. Valencia showed me Cassidy's social media occasionally. Sparse posts featuring cheap apartments and generic motivational quotes. The vibrant, confident woman who'd stolen my husband was gone, replaced by someone who looked defeated and desperate. "Do you ever feel bad for her?" Valencia asked one day. I considered the question seriously. I feel bad for the child she was, who learned to manipulate instead of love. But I don't feel bad for the adult who chose to destroy my life methodically for months. 2 years after our first coffee date, Xavier proposed properly. We were hiking in the mountains where he'd taken me for our 6-month anniversary. The ring was custom designed, featuring my birthstone instead of a traditional diamond. "I wanted something uniquely yours," he explained. "No one else will ever wear this ring." I said yes immediately. Planning our wedding was healing in unexpected ways. This time, I chose every detail for myself, not to impress others or meet someone else's expectations. The dress was simple but elegant, completely different from my first gown. Mom helped with arrangements enthusiastically, though she sometimes caught herself mentioning what Cassidy would have thought about certain choices. We'd both griefed the sister-daughter we thought we knew. Dad walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of how strong you've become," he whispered before placing my hand in Xavier's. The ceremony was intimate. 50 close friends and family members who'd supported me through the worst period of my life. No +1s for people I didn't know personally. No obligations to include anyone out of politeness. During our vows, Xavier promised to earn my trust daily, rather than demanding it automatically. I promised to communicate my needs clearly, rather than assuming he could read my mind. "Some people find their soulmates immediately," I said. "I had to lose everything first to recognize the real thing, but I'm grateful for that journey because it led me to you." The reception was perfect. Good food, better music, and people who genuinely cared about our happiness. No drama, no hidden agendas, no secret recordings. We honeymooned in New Zealand, far from everyone who knew our history. For 2 weeks, we were just Xavier and Thea, newlyweds exploring a beautiful country together. When we returned, I made a decision that had been brewing for months. I donated my original wedding dress to a nonprofit serving women leaving abusive relationships. Someone should have a beautiful wedding in this dress, I told the coordinator. Someone who deserves happiness. A month later, I received a photo in the mail. A young woman stood radiant in my dress, beside a man who looked at her like she was his entire world. The thank you note read, "I never could have afforded something this beautiful. Thank you for believing someone like me deserved to feel like a princess." I framed the photo and hung it in our hallway, a reminder that beauty could emerge from betrayal. 3 years into our marriage, Xavier and I started discussing children. The topic terrified me initially. What if I repeated my parents' mistakes with Cassidy? What if I failed to protect my children from manipulative people? Dr. Morrison helped me work through these fears during several intensive sessions. We explored my childhood experiences and identified the differences between enabling bad behavior and showing healthy love. Your awareness of these issues actually makes you less likely to repeat them, she assured me. You've learned to recognize manipulation tactics and set appropriate boundaries. When I became pregnant with our daughter, I felt cautiously optimistic. Xavier was incredibly supportive, taking over household tasks when morning sickness hit, and reading parenting books voraciously. We decided not to share the pregnancy news with extended family immediately, wanting to enjoy the early months privately. When we finally announced it at Christmas dinner, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. "Finally, some good news for this family," Aunt Priscilla declared, hugging me tightly. Dad cried when we told him privately. "I get another chance to be a grandfather," he said. "To do better this time." Our daughter, Elena, was born healthy and perfect. Holding her for the first time, I felt fierce protective love unlike anything I'd experienced. This child would never doubt her worth or question if people loved her for herself. Valencia visited us in the hospital, tears streaming down her face as she held Elena. "She's going to grow up knowing she's cherished," she said. "What a gift." Mom became a devoted grandmother, visiting weekly to help with childcare and household tasks. She'd learned from her experience with Cassidy and me, recognizing the importance of consistent boundaries and unconditional love. "I enabled Cassidy's worst impulses because I was afraid of losing her love," Mom admitted during one of our conversations. But real love sometimes means disappointing people for their own good. When Elena was 6 months old, I received an unexpected phone call. The number was blocked, but something compelled me to answer. "Thea?" The voice was barely recognizable, thin, desperate, broken. "Cassidy, please don't hang up. I know I have no right to call, but I'm dying. Literally dying. Liver cancer, stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 2 months. My hand trembled holding the phone. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not the fake bullshit I tried during the trial. I want you to know I'm sorry for everything. You violated the restraining order by calling me. I know. I don't care about legal consequences anymore. I just need you to know I understand what I did was unforgivable. I destroyed your life for money I didn't even get to enjoy. I was jealous of your happiness and wanted to take it away. There's no excuse." I sat in silence, processing her words. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately. Another part needed to hear what she had to say. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she continued. "I don't deserve it. I'm asking you to live your life fully and not let what I did poison your happiness forever. You're a good person, Thea. You deserved better than what I gave you. Is this why you called? To ease your conscience before you die? Maybe partially, but mostly because I love you, despite how horribly I've treated you. You were the best sister anyone could have asked for, and I repaid your kindness with betrayal. I'm sorry." She hung up before I could respond. I sat staring at my phone for 20 minutes. Elena sleeping peacefully in my arms. Xavier found me there when he came home from work. "Everything okay?" he asked, immediately sensing my distress. I told him about the call. He listened thoughtfully, then sat beside me on the couch. "How do you feel about it?" he asked. Confused, angry, sad, relieved maybe? She finally took real responsibility instead of making excuses. "Do you believe she meant it?" I considered the question. I think dying forced her to confront who she really was. Whether she genuinely feels remorse or just wants absolution before facing whatever comes next. I'll never know for sure. Does it matter? Not really. Her apology doesn't undo the damage, but it closes a chapter I didn't know was still open. Cassidy died 6 weeks later. Mom called to tell me, her voice heavy with complicated grief. "The funeral is Thursday," she said. "I understand if you don't want to come." I thought about it for days. Xavier offered to accompany me for support, but ultimately I decided not to attend. Cassidy had made her choices and lived with the consequences. I owed her nothing, not even my presence at her funeral. Instead, I spent that Thursday afternoon at the park with Elena, watching her discover flowers and butterflies. Life was for the living, and I refused to waste another moment dwelling on Cassidy's destructive legacy. 6 months later, I received a package from Mom. Inside was a letter Cassidy had written before her death, along with a small wooden box. The letter was short, but seemed genuine. "Thea, I know I have no right to leave you anything, but this was Grandma Eleanor's. I stole it from her jewelry box when she died because I was jealous you were her favorite. You should have it. I hope someday you can tell your daughter about the grandmother who loved you so much. I'm sorry for everything. See." The box contained Grandma's pearl necklace, the one she'd always promised would be mine someday. I'd searched for it after her death, but assumed it had been misplaced. I held the pearls up to the light, remembering Grandma fastening them around my neck when I played dress-up as a child. "Pearls are for ladies," she'd say. "And you, my dear, are going to be a very special lady someday." Elena reached for the shiny pearls with chubby fingers, and I made a decision. This necklace would be hers someday. A connection to the great-grandmother who'd loved unconditionally and the mother who'd learned to protect that love fiercely. Xavier found me crying in our bedroom, holding the necklace. "She kept it all these years," I said. "Even when she was selling everything else, she kept this." Maybe she always planned to return it, he suggested gently. Or maybe she kept it as a reminder of what she'd stolen. I'll never know her real motives. He held me while I cried, not for Cassidy, but for the relationship we'd never had, the sister I'd thought I knew, and the years of family drama that could never be recovered. But I also cried from relief. The chapter was finally, permanently closed. No more wondering what Cassidy was doing or whether she'd ever take responsibility. No more looking over my shoulder or second-guessing people's motives. I was free to focus completely on the family Xavier and I were building. A family based on honesty, respect, and genuine love. Elena took her first steps on a sunny Tuesday morning, wobbling across our living room into Xavier's waiting arms. As I watched my husband catch our daughter with tears of joy streaming down his face, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had led me here. Yes, I'd lost a sister and first husband to betrayal, but I'd gained so much more. The ability to recognize real love, the strength to demand respect, and the wisdom to choose quality over quantity in all my relationships. Elena would grow up in a home where love was demonstrated daily, not just declared, where people kept their promises and took responsibility for their mistakes, where trust was earned through consistent actions, not demanded as a right. That evening, as Xavier tucked Elena into her crib and I fastened Grandma's pearls around my neck, I made a silent promise to my daughter. She would never doubt her worth, never question if she deserved love, never settle for less than she was worth. And if anyone ever tried to hurt her the way Cassidy had hurt me, they'd discover that this mother had learned to fight back effectively. Some fairy tales end with forgiveness and reconciliation. Mine ended with boundaries, consequences, and the hard-earned wisdom that sometimes the best thing you can do for toxic people is let them face the results of their choices alone. I chose happiness. I chose peace. I chose the family that chose me back. And that, as it turned out, was the most powerful revenge of all. But life had one more twist waiting for me. When Elena turned 3, we started discussing having another child. I was 35 and didn't want too large an age gap between siblings. Xavier was eager to expand our family, often joking that he wanted Elena to have built-in protection against the world. 2 kids means they always have each other, he'd say, watching Elena play with her dolls. No matter what happens to us, they'll never be alone. The pregnancy came easily this time. I felt more confident, more prepared for the challenges of caring for an infant while managing a toddler. Elena was excited about becoming a big sister, constantly talking to my growing belly and offering to share her toys with baby brother or sister. We decided to wait until birth to learn the gender, wanting some surprises in our carefully planned life. Elena insisted the baby would be a girl who looked exactly like her, complete with curly hair and brown eyes. Our son Marcus arrived 3 weeks early during a thunderstorm that knocked out power to half the city. Elena met him at the hospital the next morning, her eyes wide with wonder as she gently touched his tiny fingers. "He's perfect, Mommy," she whispered. "Can we keep him forever?" Xavier and I laughed, but the moment crystallized something profound. Our family was complete. We had everything we'd dreamed of, and more than I'd thought possible during those dark months after discovering Cassidy's betrayal. As Marcus grew from infant to toddler, I marveled at how different sibling relationships could be when built on love instead of competition. Elena protected him fiercely, sharing toys without being asked and comforting him when he cried. There was no jealousy, no attempts to sabotage each other's happiness. "She's going to be an amazing big sister," Dr. Morrison observed during one of our periodic check-ins. "You've created the family environment you needed as a child." When Elena started kindergarten, other parents began asking about playdates and birthday parties. I found myself scrutinizing every family, looking for red flags that might indicate toxic dynamics. Was that mother too competitive about her child's achievements? Did that father make inappropriate comments about other people's marriages? Xavier gently reminded me that not everyone harbored hidden agendas. "Most people are just trying to raise their kids well, like us," he said. "You can't protect Elena from every possible hurt, but you can teach her to recognize healthy relationships." Slowly, carefully, I began building a social circle of genuinely kind families. We found our tribe among other parents who valued honesty, supported each other through challenges, and celebrated successes without jealousy. When Elena turned 6, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Mommy, why don't I have an aunt like Maya's mom has?" I'd prepared for this moment through conversations with Dr. Morrison and Xavier. We'd agreed to tell age-appropriate truth rather than creating elaborate lies that would crumble later. "I had a sister once," I told Elena as we sat in her bedroom, "but she made some very bad choices that hurt our family. Sometimes adults do things that are so harmful. We have to stop spending time with them to keep ourselves safe." Elena considered this seriously. "Was she mean to you?" "Yes, sweetheart, she was very mean in a way that can't be fixed with apologies." "I would never be mean to Marcus like that," Elena declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "I know you wouldn't," I said, kissing her forehead. "You have a kind heart." As the children grew older, their questions became more sophisticated. Elena, now 8, asked why Grandma sometimes looked sad when other families talked about all their relatives. "Losing someone you love is always hard," I explained, "even when you know it was the right choice for your safety." "Do you miss her?" Elena asked. I thought carefully about my answer. I miss the sister I thought she was. But I've learned that missing someone doesn't mean you should let them hurt you again. This became a recurring theme in our family discussions. The difference between forgiveness and enabling, between love and allowing abuse, between family loyalty and personal safety. When Marcus turned 5, he brought home a school worksheet asking students to draw their family tree. He'd carefully drawn Xavier and me, Elena, both sets of grandparents, Valencia, and even Delilah and Bruno. "Where's your sister?" his teacher had written in the margin. That evening, Marcus asked why his teacher thought I should have a sister. "Some families have lots of people and some have fewer," I explained. "What matters is that everyone in our family loves and takes care of each other." "Like how Elena takes care of me?" he asked. "Exactly like that." Meanwhile, updates about Rowan occasionally filtered through mutual acquaintances. He'd married again, a woman 20 years his senior with substantial assets. The marriage lasted 8 months before she discovered his history and filed for divorce, citing fraud and emotional abuse. He'd attempted to contact me twice over the years, once through a fake social media account, claiming he wanted to make amends and asking if we could meet for coffee. I blocked the account immediately and screenshotted everything for my records. The second attempt came through his mother, who called my office claiming Rowan was in therapy and needed closure to complete his healing process. Tell him his closure isn't my responsibility, I told her. He chose his path. I've chosen mine. I also learned that he'd tried contacting other ex-girlfriends with similar requests for forgiveness meetings. None of them responded positively. Apparently, his pattern of targeting wealthy women for financial gain was well documented among his former social circle. His parents eventually moved to Florida to escape the local gossip about their son's criminal behavior. His father's business suffered when clients learned about the family's legal troubles, forcing them to sell and relocate. The ripple effects of Rowan and Cassidy's choices continued spreading years after their initial crimes. Their decisions hadn't just hurt me, they damaged multiple families, destroyed business relationships, and created lasting mistrust in our community. When Elena turned 10, she expressed interest in photography, setting up elaborate scenes with her dolls, and asking Xavier to help her edit pictures on his computer. My initial reaction was pure panic, memories of Cassidy's supposed photography career flooding back. Photography is just a tool, Dr. Morrison reminded me during an emergency session. It's not inherently good or bad. Cassidy used it for manipulation, but Elena might use it for beauty or storytelling. With Xavier's encouragement, I enrolled Elena in a children's photography class at the local community center. Watching her genuine excitement about capturing images of flowers and pets, I realized I was projecting my trauma onto an innocent interest. Look, Mommy. Elena showed me a picture she'd taken of Marcus building a sandcastle. I got the exact moment he was concentrating so hard his tongue was sticking out. The photo was actually quite good, well composed and capturing a genuine moment of childhood joy. Nothing like the calculated, manipulative images Cassidy had specialized in. I began to see healing in allowing Elena to pursue her interests without the shadow of my past experiences. She was her own person, not a potential replica of her aunt's worst qualities. For Elena's 11th birthday, we threw a big party in our backyard with 12 of her closest friends. I watched her interact with the other children, kind, inclusive, generous with her belongings. When one girl spilled juice on her new dress, Elena immediately offered her own sweater and helped clean up without making the other child feel embarrassed. She has good instincts about people, Valencia observed, watching Elena comfort a younger cousin who'd scraped his knee. She knows how to care without giving up her own boundaries. This was the child I'd raised. Empathetic but not naive, kind but not pushover, loving but not desperate for approval. Everything I'd wished I could have been at her age. When Marcus turned 7, he announced he wanted to be a lawyer when he grew up, to help people who get hurt by bad guys. His sense of justice was fierce but not vindictive. He wanted to protect, not punish. Some people do bad things because they're hurting inside, he told me one day after watching a movie about bullying, but that doesn't make it okay to hurt other people. His emotional intelligence astounded me. At 7, he understood concepts that had taken me decades to learn through therapy and painful experience. The children's school counselor called both Xavier and me in for a conference when Elena was in 6th grade. I panicked, immediately assuming she was displaying concerning behaviors that indicated psychological damage from our family's history. Elena is one of the most emotionally mature students I've worked with, Mrs. Rodriguez told us. She has exceptional empathy, but also healthy boundaries. When another student was being bullied, she intervened appropriately and then reported the situation to adults. When a friend tried pressuring her to cheat on a test, she refused without being judgmental. Is something wrong? I asked, confused by the meeting's purpose. Nothing's wrong. I wanted to commend your parenting approach. Elena feels secure in your love but also understands that actions have consequences. That's a difficult balance to achieve. Driving home, Xavier reached over and squeezed my hand. You've given them everything you didn't have. Unconditional love with clear expectations, protection without overprotection, trust earned through consistency. We've given them that, I corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. Maybe not. But you chose to break the cycle of dysfunction in your family line. That took incredible courage. When Elena turned 12, she asked if she could see photos from my first wedding. The question caught me off guard. I'd hidden or destroyed most evidence of that period in my life. Why do you want to see them? I asked carefully. I found one picture in Grandma's album, she explained. You looked really happy, but also different, sadder somehow, even though you were smiling. I dug through storage boxes until I found the wedding album I'd forgotten about. Looking at the photos with Elena, I could see what she meant. My smile in those pictures was beautiful, but brittle, like glass that would shatter with the wrong touch. I was happy that day, I told her, but I didn't really know myself yet. I was trying to be who I thought other people wanted me to be. Do you know yourself now? She asked. Much better. And I like who I am now more than who I was then. Elena studied a photo of me with Cassidy at the reception. Your sister was really pretty. Yes, she was. Beauty on the outside doesn't always match what's inside, though. I know. Like how some of the popular kids at school are actually mean if you get to know them. My daughter's wisdom continued to amaze me. She was learning lessons I'd taken decades to understand. When Marcus turned 8, he came home from school upset because a classmate had told him that families who'd experienced trauma were broken and would always have problems. Are we broken, Mom? He asked, tears in his eyes. No, sweetheart. We're resilient. That means we learned how to heal and become stronger. Some families never face any big challenges, but when they do, They don't know how to handle them. We've already proven we can get through difficult times together. So we're like superheroes? He asked, perking up. Exactly like superheroes. Our superpower is taking care of each other. That conversation prompted a family discussion about our history that was more detailed than previous ones. Elena, now 13, was old enough to understand more complex concepts about betrayal, financial crime, and family dynamics. Your aunt and my first husband made choices that hurt people, I explained. They chose money and selfishness over love and family. But their bad choices taught me what really matters and helped me recognize when someone truly loves me. Like Dad? Marcus asked. Like Dad. And like all of you. Elena had been quiet during most of the conversation. Finally, she asked, do you think she ever regretted it before she died? I think she did. She called to apologize before she passed away. But regret doesn't undo damage. That's why it's so important to think carefully before making choices that could hurt other people. I'm glad she's not in our family, Elena said firmly. We're better without people who lie and steal. Her certainty was reassuring. She understood the difference between blood relations and chosen family, between forgiveness and restoration, between compassion and enabling. As Elena entered high school, she began dating, a development that activated every protective instinct I'd developed. I watched her interactions with boys carefully, looking for signs of manipulation or pressure. Her first boyfriend, Connor, was a polite sophomore who played violin and volunteered at an animal shelter. When he brought her flowers for their 1-month anniversary, I approved of his thoughtfulness but worried about love-bombing tactics. Mom, you're being paranoid, Elena told me after I grilled Connor about his future plans during dinner. He's just a nice guy who likes me. How do you know the difference between genuine interest and manipulation? I asked. Elena rolled her eyes but answered seriously. He doesn't try to pressure me into anything. He listens when I talk. He has his own friends and interests instead of making me his whole world. He treats service workers respectfully. He's never asked about our family's money or what kind of car Dad drives. I realized my daughter had inherited my hard-earned wisdom about recognizing healthy relationship patterns. She could identify red flags I'd missed at her age because I taught her what to look for. The relationship lasted 6 months before ending amicably when Connor's family moved to another state. Elena was sad but not devastated, maintaining perspective about teenage romance that impressed me. It was good while it lasted, she told me. But I'm not ready for anything super serious anyway. I want to focus on school and photography. Her photography had evolved into genuine artistic talent. She'd won several contests and was building a portfolio for college applications. Unlike Cassidy's calculated, manipulative images, Elena's photos captured authentic emotions and natural beauty. When she was 15, Elena asked if she could enter a photo in a contest that would be displayed publicly if she won. The subject was family love, and she'd captured Xavier teaching Marcus to ride a bike while I watched from the porch, laughing at their silly jokes. Are you sure you want our family in a public display? I asked, old fears about privacy and safety surfacing. Mom, we're not hiding anymore, Elena said gently. We're a normal family now. Normal families share their happiness. She was right. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being defined by what had happened to us and started being defined by what we'd built together. Elena won the contest. The photo appeared in the local newspaper with a caption about celebrating family bonds. No one connected us to the scandal from over a decade earlier. We were just another happy family worth celebrating. As Marcus entered middle school, he showed signs of inheriting his father's analytical mind and my protective instincts. When a new student was being bullied, Marcus organized a group of friends to include the boy in their activities without making a big show of their intervention. I remembered what you said about helping people who are hurt, he told me when his teacher called to praise his leadership. But I didn't want to embarrass him by making it obvious. His emotional intelligence continued developing in remarkable ways. When his best friend's parents divorced, Marcus provided steady support without trying to fix the situation or take sides. Sometimes people just need someone to listen, he explained when I asked how he knew what to do. Like how Dad listens to you when you have bad days. Our family had become a safe haven where the children learned through example rather than lectures. They watched Xavier and me navigate disagreements respectfully, handle stress without taking it out on each other, and maintain individual interests while prioritizing our relationship. When Elena turned 16, she asked if I'd ever considered contacting Rowan or trying to find out what happened to him. No, I said immediately. Why would I want that? I don't know. Closure, maybe? To see if he ever learned from what happened? His learning process isn't my responsibility. My responsibility is to our family and my own healing. Checking on people who hurt you usually just reopens wounds. What if he contacted you now? Like if he tried to apologize or something? I thought about the question seriously. I'd probably block his number and document the contact in case it escalated to harassment. I don't owe him forgiveness, and I definitely don't owe him a chance to feel better about what he did. Elena nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. You've moved on, but that doesn't mean you have to give him space in your life again. These conversations were preparing Elena for adulthood in ways I'd never been prepared. She understood concepts about boundaries, self-protection, and healthy relationships that would serve her well in college and beyond. When Marcus turned 10, he surprised us by asking if we could foster a dog from the local animal shelter. His reasoning was characteristically thoughtful. Some dogs get hurt by bad people and need time to learn that not all people are dangerous. Maybe we could help one learn to trust again. The parallel to our family's healing journey wasn't lost on any of us. We adopted Luna, a 3-year-old golden retriever who'd been rescued from an abusive situation. Watching the children patiently work with her, building trust through consistency and kindness, I saw our own recovery reflected in her gradual transformation from fearful to confident. Elena's senior year of high school brought college application stress and decisions about her future. She'd been accepted to several schools with strong photography programs, but she'd also discovered an interest in psychology through volunteering at a crisis hotline. "I want to help people who've been through trauma," she told me. "Maybe combine photography therapy with traditional counseling." Her career goals were clearly influenced by our family's experience, but in a positive way. She wanted to use what she'd learned about healing to help others. "Are you sure that's not too emotionally heavy?" I asked. "Working with trauma survivors can be draining." "Mom, I grew up watching you heal and rebuild your life. I know it's possible to get through terrible things and come out stronger. I want to help other people find that strength." I realized my daughter had learned the most important lesson of all, that surviving trauma could become a source of purpose rather than just pain. As Elena prepared for college, Marcus began showing interest in the legal system that had played such a significant role in our family's story. He read about criminal justice and civil rights, asking sophisticated questions about how laws protected vulnerable people. "Someday I want to be the kind of lawyer who helps families like ours," he told Xavier during a father-son conversation. "People who get betrayed by the people they trusted most." Both children had found ways to transform our painful history into motivation for helping others. They weren't defined by what had happened to our family, but they weren't ignoring it either. They'd integrated the experience into their developing sense of purpose. On Elena's 18th birthday, I gave her Grandma Eleanor's pearl necklace, earlier than I'd originally planned, but she was already the woman I'd hoped she'd become. "These belong to your great-grandmother, who loved unconditionally but never accepted disrespect," I told her as I fastened the clasp. "Wear them when you need to remember that you deserve to be treated with kindness." Elena touched the pearls reverently. "I'll save them for important moments, like graduation, or my wedding, or whenever I need to remember where I came from." "You came from love," I told her. "Everything before you was just preparation for the family we have now." As I watched my daughter admire her reflection in the mirror, wearing the necklace that connected her to generations of strong women, I felt the final piece of healing click into place. I'd not only survived Cassidy and Rowan's betrayal, I'd transformed it into something beautiful. I'd raised children who understood the difference between love and manipulation, who knew their worth wasn't negotiable, who would never accept betrayal as the price of family loyalty. The cycle was broken. The healing was complete. The story had a genuinely happy ending, not because the pain was erased, but because something better had grown from the broken pieces. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, but even better than that is raising the next generation to recognize their worth and demand the love they deserve. And that, I realized, was the true victory.